Big Blue! I want to welcome everybody back to the Blue Rush podcast for another season. It's our New York Giants podcast from the New York Post. I'm Brandon London. You see me on the Jumbotron in game during Giants home games, and I'm with the Giants beat writer for a long time for the New York Post, Paul Schwartz. Now, this is going to be our training camp preview episode. We got some major Giants news with obviously Saquon Barkley signing his one-year deal. We're going to do a rundown. We're going to talk about the biggest storylines coming from camp, and we're going to talk about what position battles we need to watch. Paul, I see you sitting there. Before we even get into the Saquon thing, welcome back for another year, another season. What year is this for you covering the team?
I believe this will be what is the anniversary? I believe this is my 30th training camp covering the Giants.
30th training camp.
Ooh. 30th training camp. Yeah, I started when I was 12 years old. So I'm only 42, and I look great for my age, right?
It's the cheekbones. It's the cheekbones, man.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, you've been covering this team for a long time. You've been through all type of contract stand-downs, holdouts, stand-ups. What was your initial reaction to the Saquon news when it broke this morning?
I would like to say I anticipated, Brandon, that Saquon would report on time, but I did not. I never, ever bought into the Saquon is going to miss any games.
No.
I never bought into that. I know his agents kind of floated that out there, after no deal was struck and it was obvious he'd play on the franchise tag or nothing. They float out there. You're not going to see him at camp, and this puts week one in jeopardy. I didn't buy that for a minute. That was, kind of a feeble attempt at leverage. What is missing a game? And if this is all about money, if he missed one game, it would have been $560,000 he missed per game. That doesn't help anybody. Certainly doesn't help Saquon. Definitely doesn't help the Giants. So I didn't buy into that. But, I definitely could have seen Saquon missing a day, a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. At some point coming in, okay, I'm ready. Let's practice and not jeopardize anything for that, September 10th opener. So I was surprised at this. And really, Brandon, what it looks like is, we'll get into what he signed and what the deal is. 10 months for this, really?
Yeah.
I mean, this could have been done a long time ago. Saquon could have had more money. What this tells me is Joe Schoen did a really good job to hold the line. And, one of the best players on the team is back, not for what he wants, but he's back.
Yeah, I look at this news as it was a graceful bow out on his end. I feel like, he could have made a lot more noise and held out and had the Giants kind of sweating up until that first game against the Cowboys. And I think the front office and the fan base would have been sweating because you look at Saquon, his numbers, his production. He is a guy that you need on not only this offense, but his team. He brings so much more than just the production on the field, just the leadership, the guy that he is. And then just the fact that when you walk around MetLife Stadium, you see 2-6 jerseys. I know Daniel Jones signed for the bag, got the money. But if you think about it, I talk to my girlfriend's daughters all the time. Like, who do you want me to go get an autograph from? Saquon Barkley. Brandon, can you give me Saquon? Who else other than Saquon would you like me to go get an autograph from? But, just what he brings in. And, Paul, I'm surprised all the information that got leaked from both sides. Not only from his sides when it came to the holdout, but then the leak that supposedly, allegedly happened coming from the Giants front office side, where it kind of made him sound like he was greedy and he wanted to respond to that. Because all you hear in that building, Quest Diagnostics Training Center, is family business is family business. So now it was just a weird, like you said, all that 10 months, that Stephon Diggs type 10 months for that. But at the end of the day, we're glad he's back. Giants fans are definitely happy that he's back. Can you kind of break down the deal and kind of give people the nuances and the details within that deal so they can be up to speed as well?
Well, look, the Giants offered Saquon 3 different deals, okay? 3 different ones. And each time the Giants thought it was a good deal that Saquon should take. They offered one at the bye week in November. That averaged like $12.5 million a year, but the guarantees were a little lower than Saquon wanted. Okay, he turns it down. Now, Saquon, back in November of last year, Saquon's camp is the one that went to the Giants. I know that Joe Schoen does not really want to do these deals during the season, but Saquon's camp went to him and said, look, the player is going to be upset if you don't try to make a deal with him now. So they tried to make a deal. It didn't work. Okay. It didn't come out. Okay. Not a big deal at that point, right? Because you can wait till the end of the season. After the season, which was a good season for Saquon, right? His value should have gone up a little bit, even though his production actually went down after the bye week. But the Giants did well. He ended up staying healthy all year. They gave him a pretty good offer at the time. I think it was in like the $21 million guaranteed range. Didn't take it. He was looking for more. Initially, Brandon, he said, I'm the best running back in the league. I should be paid the way Christian McCaffrey paid. Okay, well, that contract was signed in 2020 with the Panthers. That contract is irrelevant right now. The running backs aren't getting that, first of all. And the Panthers were not doing good business then. They gave him too much money. And the Giants, quite frankly, don't look at Saquon Barkley as Christian McCaffrey. We all talk about Saquon as he is a great runner and a great receiver. I don't think the Giants look at him as a great pass catcher. They look at Christian McCaffrey as a great pass catcher. Okay. Then you say, well, Saquon had, a lot of receptions. Well, he had 90 as a rookie, a lot of checkdowns from Eli Manning. He had a bunch last year. He averaged 5.6 yards a catch. Okay, so they don't look at him as the multi-dimensional threat that McCaffrey is, but they still love him as a player. So this last deal offer, July 17th, this is the last day to get a deal done, or else he cannot sign a multi-year contract. The guarantees were up to $23 million. That should have gotten the deal done. In my mind, I can't tell someone, it's your money. It's not my money. I can't tell you what to take and what not to take. But the $23 million was more than the tag this year of 10.1 and the tag next year of 12.2. It was more than that. So he would have been guaranteed basically 2 years of salary and no risk, right? You're a player, right? You risk it all when you play. The guaranteed money, the risk goes down. But look, Saquon didn't want it. I think his ego got in the way. I really do. And, it's his prerogative, right? And that's why I thought he is going to hold out. He's going to withhold his services for a few weeks in camp, kind of as a, hissy fit. I'm not going to come. I'm mad. I'm upset, and I think cooler heads prevailed. And what it tells us? Other than Saquon kind of bowing out gracefully, like you said, which is a great phrase, he wants to be there. He wants to be with his teammates. Saquon, he loves it. He loves it. He wants to be mouthing off to Dexter Lawrence about, a play in the hole that Dexter wouldn't have made. He wants to be, taking his boys, the running backs and bringing them up. He wants to be hanging out with Daniel Jones. He loves it, and at the end of the day, I think it was very mature of him to say, you know what, holding out is getting me nothing except soothing my ego. So why don't I just come in?
Yeah, another thing he loves doing is playing ping pong in the locker room with David Sills. That like I've asked the players, like, who's the best ping pong player on this team? It's Saquon or David Sills. So now that he's back, now we can get that one-on-one matchup for a new season. So we can put that, like, again, 10 months to just put it to bed like that. But at the end of the day, this is with a 12-week-old kid, like, this is one of those good times to put something like that to bed.
One thing I should add is that, look, they did sweeten the pot a little bit by giving him $900,000 in incentives, okay? But here, first of all, it's not a tremendous amount of money for a contract of that magnitude, not in real life, obviously. But yards per game, I think it's yards per season, I think it's 1350, 11 touchdowns, like 65 catches. But here is the big disclaimer with this. Every one of those incentives is tied to the Giants making the playoffs. So if Saquon runs for 1,500 yards, right, has a career year, and the Giants don't make the playoffs, he doesn't get that incentive money. So, it just look, if Saquon hits those incentives and the Giants make the playoffs, Joe Shane is going to be in the mood to say, $900,000 for that. That's chump change.
Oh, that's a
great.
Win. Absolutely.
That's a win. And he did not get Saquon, anything in the contract that says you cannot franchise tag me next year. So Saquon can have 1,600 yards and he can get his money and they can make the playoffs, and the Giants can turn around and say, you're getting a franchise tag again. So, the holdout would have done no good. It really would have done no good.
Man, at the end of the day, I'm just glad he's back in this offense.
Look, that's the thing. Fans
yeah.
want to see the guy. You said everyone loves 26. There'll be, the crowds will be there. And look, you think Brian Daboll was happy? The first, how many? 10 questions on Wednesday morning would have been, Coach, what about Saquon? What about him not here? What about the distraction? And Daboll, I'm not talking about Saquon. I'm not talking about Saquon. And we all have to have creative ways to ask, what about Saquon? Then Daniel Jones stepped to the podium. How does it feel without Saquon being here? You got paid. What about Saquon? Do you think that's awkward? So look, we'll all be talking about Saquon. When he talks, it'll be a story, but that's it. Now it's about football. And look, at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? The business is the business. The football is the football. Now it's going to be more about football, which is what everybody wants.
So let's talk some football, baby. This is Blue Rush. Let's get into the training camp preview side of things right now. So what are your biggest, let's talk about some of the biggest training camp storylines. I guess we can start off with position battles to watch. I'll let you go first because you already know what I'm thinking.
Well, one of my biggest storylines are going to be Saquon not being there and watching Eric Gray, the rookie, kind of look great, right? And all of a sudden, look, I was just looking at that and I'm thinking, here's what's going to happen. Matt Breida is a pretty good player. He's going to look good. Eric Gray's a rookie with fresh legs. You know how these running backs sometimes look in training camp, and then Saquon's not there, and it's like, this Eric Gray, maybe Saquon should stay away. Okay, that's gone now. That's gone. So that's good. Position battles, I mean, you know what? I'm going to give you one that's probably not on your radar because you were one of those split out wide, tall wide receivers. And all you wanted to do is catch the ball and run against the cornerbacks and make toe taps and, play to the crowd in training camp. You didn't care about the trenches. I know that. So I'm going to give you a trench battle. Okay?
Oh, okay.
A trench battle. Okay. Who's the starting left guard? Who's the starting left guard? Do you know? Do you know? Right. Well, we talk. You don't know. You don't even know the names of the offensive linemen.
Brayson, Azudu. I know.
All you want to know is the quarterback, right? You're a wide receiver. Who's the quarterback? And oh, by the way, I was open on that play, right? I was open. Shoo, I was open on that play. Next time, right? Or on 7-on-7, you're waving. Oh man. Throw it to me. Nobody can hit me. I'm a king, right? Hey, look, Josh Azudu, they like him. They think he can be the starting left guard. He got hurt last year. He had a neck problem. So I think it's Josh Azudu, Ben Bredesen, and let's not forget about Shane Lemieux. They kind of like him. I know Joe Shane liked him in Buffalo. They were almost going to draft him in Buffalo. They had high marks on him in Buffalo. So he's been hurt. He has to stay healthy. So I think that's a legitimate battle. We've talked about the offensive line for how many years with this team, right? They can't just be about the receivers and the running backs and the quarterback. Who's going to block for these guys? So I think that's a legitimate, under the radar, maybe not headline, but it is a legitimate camp battle. Who's going to be the starting left guard?
Yeah, because, I come from my father, Mike London, head football coach from William & Mary. Growing up, he always used to say, you're only as good as your offensive line. So you can be a Saquon Barkley, you can be Daniel Jones, Isaiah Hodgins. You benefit from a great offensive line. I think that's why you see the Minnesota Vikings let Dalvin Cook go, because they've got a really great left tackle. They've got a strong right tackle and interior guards. So where a backup, a RB2, can now be a RB1 within that system. And when you're a New York Giants fan, you're used to seeing, especially the old school Giants fans, you're used to seeing those hog mollies in there and having a strong presence in the run game when it comes to this football team. That's been the Giants' identity for such a long time now. But it's one of those things where, as a receiver, you understand you can't do your job to the best of your ability without a solid O-line. So that is something that every Giants fan should definitely keep their eye on. If you're, obviously for me, I'm going to say my position battle to watch. Obviously, I'm gonna go with the wide receivers, Paul, because all throughout the offseason.
Of course you're going with the wide receivers.
Yeah,
you love the wide receivers.
Those are who sell tickets. But when you look at it, and you look at Daniel Jones, 15 touchdowns last season. If you look at all the wins from the team last year, that one receiver had a 100-yard game in one of the Giants' wins in the regular season. So you got a guy like Isaiah Hodgins who came on towards the end of the year. Now you want to see what he has in terms of a full body of work. He signed himself a little one-year deal. This could be a payday for him as well. Jalen Hyatt is someone that my eyes are going to be glued on and locked to, not only because when my baby boy was born, that rookie show came up the next morning, and I was holding him, and we were watching Jalen Hyatt and his family, what he was going through. So that whole storyline has always been intriguing to me. Then when I met him at the storyline, I'm like, this dude's funny, man. This dude's funny. He's got a little personality to him. But Darius Slayton is a guy that's coming back, has been this team's wide receiver one. I would like him to see him hold on to some of those drops, unnecessary drops that were really kind of propel him into a true wide receiver one. And I want to see what Paris Campbell also offers to this offense as well. But again, you can't have success, or you can't go down the field, which reports were saying during OTAs, the Giants offense were throwing down the field. That's the next step in terms of Daniel Jones and this offense taking a step to being a solid top 10 offense if you can block that up. If you don't have to go max protection to block up, to throw the ball downfield. So I wonder if bringing in those speedy type guys is because, all right, while we try and figure out, or while the Giants try and figure out what they have within the offensive line, they still have to go quick game. They still have to get the ball out in rhythm, in snap, and bring in a bunch of yak type receivers who can catch the ball and keep running. So I'm with you on that offensive line. I don't think I've ever paid attention to the offensive line as much as I'm going to this year. And we didn't mention Evan Neal coming back in his second year. The man went outside the building and got instruction, got some work in when it comes to polishing and his work and becoming better at his skill set. So I would like to see what he looks like coming back in his second year. Another position battle that I have, and you wrote about this, I believe, last week, slot corner. Darnay Holmes and Cordell Flott. Our guy Lawrence Tynes loves Cordell Flott. You saw him make some plays earlier towards the end of the year. People say that the reports say he's bulked up a little bit. He follows me on Instagram. I see him looking at my stories sometimes. So, I'm looking at him like, okay, Cordell, added a little beef, added some beef to the bacon. So in terms of that matchup, who do you say has the edge right now going in?
You have that, and you also have the starting cornerback, right? I mean, they want Deonte Banks to be the starter. That's why they drafted him. But, that's why there are question marks here. You have, Deonte Banks is a highly acclaimed rookie, but that doesn't mean he's going to get it done. Cordell Flott needed to gain weight. I mean, he was a string bean. You know what I mean? He's got length. He's got that kind of little spidery ability, but he needed to get bigger and stronger in the slot, especially. So I think he has the upper hand. But, Darnay Holmes does, he's like that, the expression about the bad penny, keeps on showing up, you know what I mean? Or whatever, I mean, I'm not saying he's bad, but he's a guy that's hard to get off the roster because he usually plays well enough. I saw he said, he needs to get less handsy. He knows it. Too many penalties for him. Needs to get less handsy. So I think that's very important. Not a very, very deep position, I don't think. Aaron Robinson, the previous regime drafted him in the third round, and, they thought he was a good player, and he just has not played. He just has not stayed healthy. Can he be in the mix, right? He has enough talent, I think. So, a lot of what ifs. You mentioned the receivers, and you did mention Paris Campbell. I know that. But to me, he's the guy I'm going to watch the most. Because, look, I know what Hodgins is, I think. He can get better. I know what Slayton is. But Paris Campbell's kind of a wild card to me. He's one of those Ohio State Football Factory second-round receivers, a lot of speed, perfect slot guy. His first 3 years in Indianapolis, what happens? Just cannot stay healthy. So he looks like a bust. This past year, he catches 60 balls. He looks like a player. The Giants give him like $4.5 million on a one-year contract. So nobody around the league is like, we love this guy. It's like, maybe, we'll see. So I think, this is a year of decision for him. They got a lot of guys in the slot. I mean, I don't think Sterling Shepard will be ready from day one. I'm sure that Wan'Dale Robinson won't be ready from day one. He looks like a pup candidate to me. And let's not forget, they just signed Cole Beasley, right?
Yeah.
Who was a really good slot receiver, He's what, 34 years old, and he really didn't do much last year. So this is more like a let's see what he has in the tank thing. But Brian Daboll was called a lot of plays, for 4 years in Buffalo with Josh Allen throwing the ball to Cole Beasley, and he caught I think more than 80 passes twice in Buffalo. So does he have something left? Is this something that wait and see, depending on how Sterling is? They got a lot of guys. Yeah, the receivers have a lot of guys. Yeah.
And that's funny that you say Paris Campbell is your question mark on in terms of the receiver room. Nick McLeod or whoever's going to be that starting strong safety is going to be that wild card or that question mark for me in that defensive secondary. Losing Julian Love was, I think a lot of people, you're not going to feel it until you actually see it. What he was, that utility knife, that type of player that can play down in the box. And then when you saw X get hurt, he had to go over the top. And I'm talking to Darnay Holmes when Julian Love had to fill in last season. And I'm like, what's some of the things he's got to learn? He was like, for anything, being vocal. He's like, Julian Love didn't have to be as vocal out there. Now that he's in that middle, he's got to communicate with not only me here in the slot, but he's got to communicate to the outside guys. He was like, Jay Love didn't have to really do that in that defense. So whoever's going to step up and be that strong safety, are you going to be a straight box guy where you could just fill the run and play side to side? Or are you going to be a guy that has a little bit of range? You can cover a tight end. We know it's about the Dallas Goddards and some of the tight ends in this division. So will you be able to play a tight end, play man-to-man, and be able to get over the top? So that's been a huge question mark that I've been kind of keeping my eye on. And then my last position battle, Daniel Jones versus DJ. What Daniel Jones are we going to see this year? And being around this guy, he's the most humble guy. He's a football player. Paul, you're going to ask him a couple questions. He'll give you that's all you're going to get, like a little smirk, and then he's going to get straight in the business of the answer. I think this year he's going to have to show a little bit more personality to that team because now you're the money guy, you're Danny Dollar. But at the same time, I don't want him to get caught doing too much. Just play your game. And if he can continue to progress the way Josh Allen did with Brian Daboll come year 2, year 3 under that offense, if Daniel Jones can continue to progress, I think you're going to be fine. Don't try and be too much. So that's my last little position thing I'm looking at. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be too much. I don't.
Yeah. I just don't think it's in him. But you make a good point that money doesn't have to change a person, but it does change the aura around a person, right?
Yeah.
If he throws an interception, he's not just a bum. He's an overpaid bum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Overpaid is it's a factor.
Yep.
And I don't think it's going to really, phase him too much, but it's a factor. If he has a bad day in training camp, one of the days where you're not up there in the crowd trying to keep crowd control, somebody will say, 40 million for this? What are you kidding me? You know what I mean? I mean, it's just natural. That's what happens. So it is a situation to monitor. Just Daniel this offseason, I forget the artist, but he went on stage at a country music concert. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And started singing with the guy. And like Daniel Jones, really? And is that him just having fun, or is that him, I got my contract, I can let my hair down a little bit? We'll see. Do I expect him to be, an incredible quote with us? I don't. But he always has been very serious about the responsibility of being the Giants quarterback. But now he's got the responsibility of being the highest paid player. So we'll see if there's a little bit of a sea change with him on that. And I'll give you one more quick position, which, just because it's a rookie, okay? Oh, John Michael Schmitz is going to be the starting center. Well, we think so, right? We think so, but he's got to beat out, probably Bretterson. He may be Hassenauer, the guy they picked up from the Steelers. A rookie is a rookie. And really, I lied. There is one more. Inside linebacker, right? Jared Davis is out for the year. He probably was going to be the starter. Now, they may not always use a second inside linebacker because Bobby Okereke is going to be on the field all the time, but you saw Darian Beavers at this time last year, right? He looked like a guy who was like, man, he's a 6th-round pick. He might be a factor here. And then he tears his ACL in the second preseason game. So who is that going to be? Beavers, Micah McFadden. It's a lot of slim pickings there. I think they like Beavers. They drafted him. We'll see if he's healthy, and he's a big physical presence. These are the under the radar things, but if you have too many holes, it's a problem, and these are some holes that they need to fill.
And that could be somewhere where they go look elsewhere. So when players on other teams, when you're listening to reports, this is to the fans, when you're listening to reports of people talking about other second or third linebackers that may get cut from a team because the room is just too crowded, that could be a guy that Wink Martindale and Joe Shane bring in to fill in and play within this offense. Or play within this defense. Right. All right, Paul, before we wrap things up, final thoughts heading into the first day of camp tomorrow, the first practice of the 2023 season. The football is here, but winter is here as well.
Well, you know what? We didn't need the heat wave. It's going to be the 3 hottest days of the summer, right? Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which I don't appreciate. But look, that's football. I get it. That's training camp. This last year at this time, everything was new. The GM was new. The head coach was new. I mean, not all the players are new, obviously, but a head coach is new. When you're at a training camp, right? Everything comes down from the head coach. He talks every day. It's his schedule. If he wants to turn it up, it's turned up. If he wants to turn it down, it's turned down. The head coach is the man really during the season, but in training camp, we got to dial it back. There was a fight in camp. What is the coach going to say about it? This was all new to Brian Daboll, right? He waited 25 years to become a head coach last year. So now it's year 2. We're familiar with him. The holdovers on the team, the returnees are familiar with him. So, that's, Daboll 2.0. He has said many times, you don't hit the ground running. It's not just, this is not, week 19. This is not an extension of last year. He was the coach of the year in 2022, right? He had a great season. The Giants had a good season and made the playoffs. Gone. You don't pick up from there. You just don't do it. And I think the teams that think they can, you hear the rhetoric early in training camp. We're going to build off last year. That's fine. You want to build off last year, but it doesn't mean anything. So I'm sure Daboll has preached that in the spring. He will preach it hard starting on Wednesday, that what we did last year means nothing. I'm not the defending coach of the year. I had that last year. Now I have to prove it again, just like everyone else does. But, it's onward and upward. They had a good year last year, and, they know Wink Martindale's defense. They know Mike Kafka's play calling. They know Brian Daboll's style. So there's no excuses not to look better earlier in this training camp.
Everybody is O&O. That's bam, right there. I think that's what fans need to realize right now. Don't look at the schedule. Don't look ahead. Don't worry about Dallas until that comes up. Right now, it's just about finding the perfect or the best 53 guys that fit the scheme and fit the culture to put on the field come week 1. We want to thank you guys for listening and watching Blue Rush. It's our New York Giants podcast from the New York Post. We want to thank Emma K. Austin, Jake Brown, and Andrew Hartz, of course, for producing the show. And make sure you watch us on the New York Post Sports YouTube page and subscribe to Blue Rush on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, people. We're going to check back in with you guys in a few weeks, Giants fans. I promise you. Until then, stay safe, and thanks as always for checking out Blue Rush.